bond. They are telling that the coupon is 7%. It is not $8, but it is 7% per annum, and they want you to estimate the price and yield. So this 104 is not the price. This 104 is price if the coupon is 8% or $8. But here in the question they have said that consider another 2-year bond whose coupon is 7% and find its price. So find its price means we have to find the market value of the bond. And as I taught you in my previous sessions also, market value of the bond is equal to present value of all its cash flows. So we are going to find the present value of cash flows and then add them all so that we can get the market value of the bond. That is price, estimate the price of the bond. Okay. Before we do that, the face value of the bond is 100, which is given above in the question. They have not asked to change the face value. If you see bond D, principal amount is 100 and maturity is 2 years. They are just asking us to change this coupon rate and find the price. So face value is 100. Coupon they are saying is 7%. So 7% of 100 will be 7 rupees or $7 because here they are talking in dollars. Okay. Now we pay the coupon every half yearly. So we want half yearly stated coupon. So if I do half yearly, the interest will be 7 divided by 2. That is half I am finding. So $3.5 is what is the coupon or the interest. So now we can find the market value. Market value is equal to, it is a 2-year bond. 2-year bond means we will have 4 half yearly periods, 6 months, 4 times. That means we are going to receive the interest 4 times, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5 in the 2 years period. And in the last period, we will receive the principal as well as the amount. So 3.5 is the first thing, first interest that we are going to receive into e raised to minus RT. Now this R is nothing but the bond rate which you found in the first question. I don't have the solution, it's in the other PC. So in the first question, you all have the solution. We had found the rate for bond A, which was a 6-month bond. And I think it was 4.04%. Can anybody cross check and let me know? 0.04 it was. 0.0404. Yes, all of you? Into 6 by 12 because this is 6-month coupon. All of you there with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the second installment will be again 3.5 into e raised to minus. Now for bond B, we had found the rate. This is the first question that we had solved. Calculate 0 rates for maturities of 6 months, 18 months, 24 months. So 6 months, 1 year we did for bond B, then we did 1.5 year for bond C and 2 year for bond D. So all the rates we have solved it for the first section of the question. So those rates only I am using. So bond A was 6 months, the rate was 4.04%, that is 0.0404. For bond B, I think the rate was 5.12 or anything else we had got. If the rate is different, please let me know. We have already calculated this and you have solved it in your books. I'll share the entire document with you by taking it from the other PC by today evening, or I'll try by tomorrow at least. 3.5 into the third installment e raised to minus the third bond rate, that is the rate of the bond for bond C was 0.0544 into 18 by 12 that is 1.5 years, plus the last installment, you will receive 100 rupees principal plus 3.5, which is the interest, into e raised to minus, for the bond D, the rate that we had got was 0.0580. If anything else we had got, any change in the rate, please let me know. So using this equation, we have to solve and find the market value of the bond. So when you solve it, that is, you find the present value of 3.5 for the first installment, then 3.5. Entire equation e raised to, if you solve, you get as first one as 3.43 plus 3.325 plus 3.225 plus 92.164 is what I have got. If you add all this, all the four interest plus the principal at the end, the market value of a 2-year bond whose coupon is 7% is equal to 102.44. And if you see here, it was only 104 because the coupon was 8% here, $8. So the market value was 104. Now here in this last question, they have told you to find the price again, but by taking 7% interest. So if I take 7% interest and solve, the same bond D's value will be 102.44 because the interest is less here. There it was $8, here it is $7. Any doubts with this part? I know it's after a gap of many days, so you might be feeling it little difficult. But then this same I have solved many times. If you could just revise the previous sums that I have done, the same thing I have done every time that I have solved it. Only thing is we were finding that R there minus R into 6/12. Here we know the R values because you solved the first section of this question. We are finding now the market value by just changing the interest rate from $8, it has become $7. So what will happen to the market value? Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Now the last part of the question, that is, they are also asking you to find yield of a 2-year bond. So we have done with the price. Now we'll find the yield of the bond. Now what is yield of the bond? This question was asked only once in one paper. So that paper only I have also given you the question, which question paper it was asked. So bond yield is nothing but, I'll just write the definition only here. Bond yield is that rate at which present value of cash flows is equal to the market value of the bond. Okay, now see what I am trying to say. It is that single rate at which your present value of cash flows are equal to the market value of the bond. Now here above that we have solved, if you see I have taken different rates. 6 months the rate was 0.0404. So the rate is 4.04%. For 1 year the rate was 5.12%. So the different rates that we took depending on different bonds of different maturities. But here they are telling you to find one single rate that will make the present value of cash flow equal to the bond yield. So equal to the market value. Okay, so I know the market value, I've calculated it above 102.44. So your present value of cash flow should be equal to that. Present value of cash flows is 3.5. That is the interest that you're going to receive every 6 months, into e raised to, we don't know this rate, minus y I am writing, that is the yield that we have to find, into 6/12 for the first interest that we receive, plus second time 3.5 interest into e raised to minus y into 12/12. That is 1 year bond. Okay, plus After 1.5 years, I'll receive another interest into e raised to minus y. I don't know the yield into 18 by 12. That is 1.5 year is over. And finally, after the 2 years are over, I'll receive 103.5, that is 100 rupees principal and 3.5 as interest into e raised to minus y into 24 by 12, that is 2 years. So here this y we have to find, and this y should be a single rate. Okay, it's not like the above solution that we did for 6 months, the rate was 4.04% and 5.12. They want a single rate that will make the bond yield, that is the bond cash flows, equal to its market value, and market value was 1.1 or 2.44, which I have calculated few minutes back. So we have to solve this equation and find this y value. Now it is not possible to do it very easily manually, so I'll just leave it to the equation. We are not finding the y value here because you have to do it using trial and error method. That means maybe you start trying with 4% and see whether once you put 4% at y everywhere 0.04, you need to check whether it is becoming 1 or 2.44 or no. Then you should try at 4.1%, 4.2%. So like this, it's trial and error method, which will take lots of time. So we are not going to solve this. I've just written the equation how a bond yield is to be found out. That is, the present value of cash flows should be equal to the market value. And to find the present value of cash flows, this y is the yield. So this y is what they wanted us to find. But because we'll have to use trial and error method, I'm not doing it. You can even start with 1%, 0.5% and try and see. So if you keep trying that, it will take God knows how many trials we have to do, and then we'll derive at 1 or 2.44. And in exam, you will not find so much time to do all this. And this question was asked only once. So you need not worry too much about it. Just write the equation and leave it if it comes in this exam also. It may not come. The possibilities are very less because after 2013, it is not repeated. This question can be repeated, but they may ask only zero rate forward rates. The next two, the C by 2 that we calculated, the third and the fourth are very rarely asked. So all the sums that I solved also I have shown you. These are the sums which I've solved in the previous classes. They've always asked you to find the zero rates. And maximum, after the zero rate, they may ask you to find the forward rate and par yield, which was the C by 2 thing which I solved for you. Okay. So this was the last part of the problems of this unit. I will share the entire document with you by compiling it from all the pieces. I don't know if I have already shared it on WhatsApp. I'll just check that also once. Now, only part remaining in the fourth unit is the theory. I hope all of you are practicing the sums because it's very, very important for you to practice the problems of the fourth unit. It may come for 10 marks or 7 marks, I have told you, and the solutions are very simple. I have taught you because there is a gap of a week or two, you might have forgotten, but if you go back and revise or see the videos, the solution are monotonous, same formula, you're just going to go on adding rate and solving the answers. Only the problem with this unit is it's very lengthy. When you start solving, the problems are bigger. So for 10 marks, they may ask you those kind of sums. Okay. Now, any doubts till here, anybody? Otherwise, we'll finish off the theory and we'll complete this unit today so that I can start with the fifth unit in my next class, or maybe if possible in this class only. Anybody having any doubts? Should we start with the theory?
Ma'am, can you
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
upload the videos of the fourth chapter previous classes
On
on
YouTube,
YouTube?
I have not done.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll see how many I have to still upload and I'll do it today.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So let's start with this. The theory, I've actually done a part of the theory also, but I'll repeat it again because there was a gap. So fourth unit talks about interest rate markets, And on the interest rate markets, interest rates are a factor in the valuation of virtually all derivatives. So you take any derivative instrument, you will need interest rate to value that particular derivative. So let us take example, we did sums of forwards. When we did forwards problems, you use the formula F naught is equals to S naught E raised to RT. So there R was required. That R was the interest rate. So whether you take first unit or you take the third unit, when we did swap, we did on interest rate swap, currency swap. There also the rates were very, very important. Fixed rate, floating rate. So in any kind of derivative instrument, interest rate is important to find the value of that particular derivative instrument. And interest rate in a particular situation defines the amount of money a borrower promises to pay to the lender. So it's nothing but if two people are into a contract, one is borrowing money, the other is lending. So suppose I am borrowing and Mansi is lending. So interest rate is nothing but the rate that I will pay to Mansi because I've taken loan from her, I'm borrowing money from her, and she is the lender. Whatever interest rate I will pay to her or whatever interest I have to pay to her for that loan is the interest rate that we need to know. The interest rate applicable in a situation depends on the credit risk. Now, how much would be the interest rate? Depends upon the risk. What kind of risk? Suppose I and Mansi enter into a contract and there is no intermediary. The risk is very high. I may default. She has just given me money on trust and guarantee. So if she just trusts me and gives me money, there is no collateral, there is no banker, no guarantor, then she will charge high interest rate because the risk is high. But if I take the same loan from the banker will ask me to keep some money as security, something as security, property or something, or he will ask me to get some guarantor signature. In that case, the interest rate will be low because the risk there is low. I may not default, and if I default, the guarantor will be got. So the interest rate depends on the risk. If the risk is very high in the loan, the interest rate will be high. If the risk is low, the interest rates will also be comparatively lower. The higher the credit risk, the higher the interest rate that is promised by the borrower. Now there are three types of rates: treasury rates, LIBOR rates, and repo rates. I had explained you this in my previous class also. I will repeat it. Treasury rates are the rates at which an investor earns a rate that an investor earns on treasury bill or treasury bonds. Now, what are treasury bill or bonds? These are the bonds or bills issued by the government of a particular country in their own currency. So, Indian government also issues treasury bills and treasury bonds. People like you and me can buy them and give loan to the government, and in turn, government will pay us certain interest rate on those bonds, and on maturity, our money will be repaid back with the principal amount promised will be paid back. So these are the treasury rates and zero rates, which are risk free because they are guaranteed by the government of a particular country, and the risk of default of a government is very low or negligible in a particular country. So treasury rates are therefore totally risk free rate in the sense that an investor who buys a treasury bill is certain, that means he is having a guarantee that the interest and principal payment will be made as promised. So there will be no default. Government is not going to cheat with us. Whatever interest is promised and whatever amount we have given as loan, both will be paid to us on time. Derivatives traders do not use treasury rates, but they use the LIBOR rates. So we don't take risk-free rate, but we basically take the market rate or the risky rate, which is the LIBOR rate. Okay. What is a LIBOR rate? LIBOR rate is a London interbank offer rate. A LIBOR rate is quoted by a bank. LIBOR quote by a bank is the rate of interest at which the bank is prepared to make large wholesale deposits with other banks. So here, one bank is giving loan to other bank. So the rate at which they trade is called as the LIBOR rate, and this rate keeps changing every day. So it is like the market rate. As the demand for loan increases, the interest rate increases. If there is no demand for loan, the interest rate is low. So LIBOR rate is the rate at which one bank does a wholesale deposit with the other bank. What do I mean by wholesale deposit? Bank to bank, if the loan is given, it is a huge amount. It will not be 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh. It will be a huge amount. A deposit with a bank can be regarded as a loan to that bank. So suppose State Bank of India gives loan to Canara Bank. So they are going to trade at the LIBOR rate. Usually it happens between two countries. So you can say maybe State Bank of India is giving loan to Federal Bank in US. So that can be done. That is bank to bank where LIBOR rate is used. Large banks also quote LIBID rate, that is London Interbank Bid Rate, and is the rate at which they will accept deposit from other banks. So the bank which is giving loan, they call it as LIBOR rate, and the bank which is taking loan, they call it as LIBID rate. That means they are going to bid at what rate they are going to take loan from the other bank. So when the borrower tells the rate, we call it as bid rate. And when the lender tells the rate, we call it as ask rate. Bid and ask rate are the two rates from the borrowers and the lender's point of view. So this was LIBOR rate. Remember, treasury rates are risk-free rates. These are the rates that are given by the government of any particular country for the bonds that they issue to their public. And there is 100% guarantee that the money will be paid back. Whereas the LIBOR rate is the rate at which one bank deposits huge amount with other bank, or you can say one bank is giving loan to other banks. So that rate is the LIBOR rate. This rate is risky, and it keeps changing on the demand of the loan. How much the other bank wants, how much this bank is ready to give, depending on the demand and supply. This rate keeps on changing. The next is the repo rate. Anybody having any doubts still here? Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Repo rate is nothing but the word itself says that repo rate says it is a repurchase rate. Now, what is repurchase rate? I've explained you this earlier also. I don't know how many of you remember, but let's go through again. Suppose I tell you that, okay, let me read it out once for you. Sometimes trading activities are funded with a repo or a repurchase agreement. This is a contract where an investment dealer who owns securities agrees to sell them to another company now and buy them back later at a slightly higher rate. So let's take example. Suppose that I have certain bonds with me and I am in need of money. So suppose the value of the bonds is 1000 rupees. I go to Pranali and I tell her, Pranali, please buy these bonds from me today for 1000 rupees. Give me 1000 rupees. And after 1 month, I will repurchase back those bonds from you for 1100 rupees. So what I am doing, I am telling Pranali today, take my bonds for 1000 rupees and give me 1000 rupees today. Keep the bonds with you for 1 month. After 1 month, I will come and repurchase my bonds from you for 1100 rupees. So Pranali will agree for it. And what is the gain that Pranali is getting by doing this? Anybody?
100.
100. Yes, correct. Because I gave the bonds to her for 1000 and I repurchased for 1100. That 100 rupees extra is nothing but the repo rate or the interest rate that Pranali earns. So repo rate is nothing but a rate in which one party agrees to sell certain securities to other party with a promise to buy them back later at a higher price. So I have sold bonds to Pranali at 1000 rupees with a promise to buy them back after 1 month at 1100 rupees. So Pranali's gain is 100 rupees, which is the interest that she gets, and that interest is called as the repo rate because we both are entering into a repurchase agreement. Now you purchase it from me, and later I will repurchase it from you at a higher rate. Okay, so that is repo rate. The other company is providing loan to the dealer. So it is as good as Pranali is providing loan to me by keeping my bonds with her for 1 month. The difference between the price at which the securities are sold and the price at which they are repurchased is the interest rate. So 1100 minus 1000, 100 rupees you said is the gain. That is the interest rate. And this interest rate is referred to as repo rate. The most common type of repo is overnight repo, in which the agreement is renegotiated each day. However, longer term arrangements known as term repos are sometimes used. So usually these things are done between banks, so they enter into overnight repos. Overnight repo means you enter into a contract today to repurchase them tomorrow. So only for one night. And tomorrow, if you are not able to repurchase, then tomorrow you will again renegotiate the rate. So instead of 1100, I would say, Pranali, keep it for one more day. I will buy it from you for 1110 rupees. So I have renegotiated the rate. So they are renegotiated or they settled overnight. But there are also long-term repos available, which we call them as term repos, wherein the period is more than one day. So 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, these kind of repo rates are also available. So those were the three types of rates. It can be asked for 3 months. What do you mean by treasury rates? What do you mean by Libor rate? Or what do you mean by repo rate? Or all the three can be asked for 7 months. Explain the different types of interest rates. Okay, so now measuring interest rates. The compounding frequency used for an interest rate is the unit of measurement. The difference between quarterly and annual compounding is same like the difference between miles and kilometers. So when we measure interest rate, we basically see the frequency, that means the timing. So you want interest rate monthly, daily, hourly, quarterly, half yearly. That is the way how the interest rates are measured. Usually, in case of derivatives market, the interest rates are measured continuously. We do continuous compounding. So we used always E raised to formula, because E raised to formula gives us continuously compounded value. Whereas for the normal rate, we use the natural log formula. Okay, I hope you remember all those things which we did in the first unit. Next is the zero rate. A zero rate or a spot rate for maturity T is the rate of interest earned on an investment that provides a payoff only at time T. So a zero rate is the rate where the bond is not going to give you interest directly, but you're going to get the interest like the same example, 1,000 rupees bond I gave to Pranali and bought back for 1100. So the interest was 100 rupees there. So interest rate was not mentioned, but the amount was given. So example, suppose a 5 year zero rate is quoted at 5%. So that means if you have a 100 rupees or $100 bond invested for 5 years, it will grow at 5% for 5 years and it will become 128.4. So they will, when we are entering into a zero rate bond, they will not mention that 5%. The contract will be, you buy a bond from me for 100 rupees today. After 5 years, I will give you 128.40. So you buy it at face value, and on the day of repayment, you bought for 100, but you will get 128.40. So 28.40 is the interest rate that you will earn on that bond for 5 years. So that is nothing but 5%. So in case of zero rates, they usually don't mention the percentage, but they tell you the amount at which you can buy, the face value today, and the maturity amount. Okay, so that was zero rates, on which we have already done sums. Now bond pricing, bond yield and par yield. For all the three I have solved sums, so now we'll understand them. To calculate the cash price of a bond, we discount each cash flow at the appropriate zero rate. So this is nothing but market value of the bond pricing, which was equal to present value of cash flows. So you saw every time I had to find the bond price, I had to do the present value of cash flow, and each cash flow was discounted at a particular rate. So there was a different rate for 6 months, for 1 year, for 1.5 year, for 2 years. So we had different zero rates that we used to find the present value of cash flows, and that became the price of the bond or the market value of the bond. What is bond yield? Just now I explained you in that sum. Bond yield is nothing but it is that rate at which the present value of cash flows are equal to the market price of the bond. So that why we have to find, it is that rate at which your bond price or the market value is exactly equal to the present value of cash flow. So that single rate when you find, you call it as bond yield. And what is par yield? Par yield is the sums that we did where we found the C by 2 value. C is the coupon rate. So par yield for a certain maturity is the coupon rate or the interest rate that causes the bond price to equal its face value. So whatever is the market value, we made it equal to face value, and we had to find that interest rate, that coupon rate. When you find that coupon rate, you call it as par yield. So when you find in normal interest rate, we call it as zero rate. When you find C, you call it as coupon rate or par yield. And when you find the yield, bond yield, that Y formula, we call it as bond yield. So all the three meanings you need to understand in theory. Then forward rates. Forward rates are the future zero rates. So if I know the rate for today, 6 months, then I can find the rate for 6 to 12 months. That is, in the future, after 12 months, what would be the rate? If I know the 12-month rate, I can find the 18-month rate. So forward rates are the future zero rates, which are implied by today's term structure. That means which you can find by looking at today's interest rates, you can find the future interest rates. So this formula we had used and we have done many sums on forward rate also. RF is equals to R2 T2 minus R1 T1 divided by T2 minus T1. I had asked you to use the first formula, and using that we have solved lots of sums of forward rates. The next is the forward rate agreement. A forward rate agreement is nothing but an agreement between two parties where one party has taken loan principal amount and has agreed to pay later with interest. So every time you pay interest, it is a forward rate agreement. So every interest payment is treated as a forward rate agreement. So in a 2-year bond, if I'm paying interest every 6 months, that means 4 times I will pay interest. That means I have 4 forward rate agreements. So every time we transfer the interest to a party or pay the principal amount or repay the loan, we are entering into a forward rate agreement. So what is forward rate agreement? That is, you decide the rate in advance. So you decide the rate today and you're going to pay it in the future. So we call it as a forward rate. Okay, it's not going to be decided at that time. While taking the loan, the rate is decided and the payment is done in the future. So we had done sums on this also. 2 sums I have done from the lender's point of view, from the borrower's point of view. RK was the interest rate of interest agreed in the agreement. So suppose 5% is agreed interest rate for the loan between me and Pranali. So that was RK, the agreed rate, and RM was the actual market rate. So the bank rates keep changing, right? So suppose the actual market rate becomes 6%. I have agreed to take the loan at 5%, market rate is 6%. So I will gain as a borrower. Pranali will lose. But suppose I have agreed to take loan at 5% and market rate is 4%. Then Pranali will gain, I will lose. So lender's point of view, borrower's point of view, using the formula, we have done sums on this as well. How to find the cash flow of the forward rate agreement. Next was treasury bond futures. The most popular long-term interest rate future contracts. It is traded in Chicago Board of Trade. In this contract, any government bond with more than 15 years to maturity are traded. So these are government, because the name itself says treasury bonds. So these are government bonds which have more than 15 years of maturity. In a treasury bond future contract, the party with a short position has a number of delivery options. So short position means the person who has given, who is the long is the buyer and short is the seller. So short person is the one who has given the loan. So in a treasury bond future contract, the party with a short position has a number of delivery options. So that means the government has a number of options when the bond will mature. So different maturity of bonds are available. Delivery can be made on any day during the delivery month. There are number of alternative bonds that can be delivered. So any kind of treasury bond can be delivered. So there are variety of bonds on which you have to enter into a contract with government, and the government is going to give you those bonds at a future date for which the rate, interest rate and the amount is fixed upon today. So you're basically trading the bonds in the futures market. Instead of shares, index, bonds are traded. Treasury bond price quotes in the US, how they are calculated. It is cash price is equals to quoted price plus assured. This is not very important. I'll not get into this. We'll skip this part because you're not going to have it for exam, as well as there are no sums on this and bit confusing. So we'll skip this part as of now. The next is treasury note futures. Now, like the treasury bond futures, these are treasury notes. And these are basically traded in the United States. The treasury notes are 5-year treasury futures, whereas the treasury bonds have 15 years maturity. Treasury notes have 5 years maturity, and they are traded in the United States. In the treasury note future contract, any government bond or note with a maturity between 6.5 years to 10 years can be delivered. So if you see, maximum period is 10 years, whereas in case of bonds, it was 15 years. That's the only difference between a note and a bond. Okay, the time period. Otherwise, both are government bonds or notes. The name bond or note is one and the same. Both are government securities in which we can buy futures contracts. The last part of the slide, interest rate derivatives. Interest rate derivatives are instruments whose payoffs are dependent in some way or the other on the interest rate. So interest rate derivative is nothing but when the instrument, the value of the underlying asset depends on the interest rate. So loan is a underlying asset whose value depends on the interest that you have to pay on the loan. Or bond is a underlying asset whose value is dependent on the interest on the bond. So interest rate derivatives are those derivatives where you trade in loans or bonds where interest rate is very important. The complications in valuing the interest rate derivatives, we need now how when we are valuing the interest rate derivatives, we cannot sit with a 6-month rate and sit to derive the interest rates. We need the whole term structure. That means if it is a 2-year bond, I need the 6-month rate, 1 year, 1.5 year, 2 year. If it is a 5-year bond, I need 10 rates every half yearly. So the whole structure or the whole term interest rates are required. The stochastic process of an interest rate is more complicated than that for a stock price. So like we did forwards or futures in the first unit, valuing stock price was very easy. But when we come to interest rate and when we did those sums, you saw the approach itself, the process itself is very tedious. You have to find 6 months rate, then 12 months, 1.5, then those become the zero rate. You find the forward rates for them. Then you also find the par yield or the coupon rate. So the process is very tedious. And the volatilities are also too high because the interest rate keeps changing depending on the demand and supply of the loan. Whereas the stock price doesn't change that often. The interest rate change very often. So the volatility is little more here. Interest rates are used for discounting the payoff as well as for defining the payoff. See, I did sums where we found the C, which was the interest amount. So there also interest rate was required, and we used e raised to RT. R is also interest rate, C is also interest rate. So to define, it is also used for discounting as well as it is used for finding the amount that we are going to receive. That's why they are more confusing because you're going to use interest rate for the amount also as well as for discounting also. So this was about the 4th unit. I've completed it fully today with theory as well as the sums. You need to revise them. I will share the videos with you. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Anybody having any doubts?